Hello and welcome to Middlebury 5-0. I am your host, Officer Chris Mason, and on the show with me today is Kurt Broderson, aka Indiana Jones. Welcome to the show, Mr. Jones.
Thanks for having me.
So I think a large part of the Indiana Jones persona is the hat.
Definitely.
Yeah. You're 50% of the way there,
Right.
if you got that.
Yeah,
hat.
I like had pants that sort of fit for it, but there was no way I was wearing a leather jacket and
Yeah.
satchel. And
We're of the generation. Well, I'm probably a little bit older than you, but where
I think
Indiana.
you're younger than me. I
I'm
think.
younger than you. Oh dear. Where Indiana Jones was for me at least, I know growing up,
Yeah.
that was a very iconic movie and a very iconic character. It seemed like everybody around that time was enamored of Harrison Ford.
Yeah, same for me. I mean,
Right.
growing up with the first one was great. The second one was horrible. Third one, they sort of billed it as an apology for the second one.
Right.
That was great. And then now with the fourth one out, but the first one really set the tone for the character and
Sure.
great.
Yeah. So he had the hat, but we have another prop
Right.
here. But yeah, we have the whip. Yeah, such as Indiana Jones would have used. So I was hoping you'd give us a demonstration.
I thought you were. I thought it was part of. If it comes in black, you can put it with the rest of the outfit.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to talk to the chief, I think, about making this part of the official uniform. I think it would be.
I think you need a little more training in it than
Right.
probably the other tools you've got.
Definitely. Yeah, we'll have to add it to the academy program. A week of intensive whip training.
Well, don't you have to get when you're learning taser, don't you get tased? Therefore, you
not
have
anymore.
to get
I think that used to be the case. Now not so much. But you do have to get pepper sprayed if you carry pepper spray. So I have been pepper sprayed. That was part of my training.
Right. So the theory sort of holds that you'd have to
Right.
get whipped if you
Have
were
to
bring
take
that
some
in.
lashes.
That would-
Yeah. Well, you don't have to get shot if you carry a gun.
That's true.
They haven't. Yeah. So.
Right. It'd whittle down the force a little too quickly.
Yeah. It's all so confusing and inconsistent. So you are dressed as Indiana. Well, you have the Indiana Jones hat, because there is an Indiana Jones event.
Right. So
Cooking.
we last summer participated in what was called Crowdsource Cinema,
Right.
a remake of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where the idea was based on an earlier remake of Star Wars, where filmmakers all over the country remade Star Wars, little pieces, and then they assembled them. So this one was a little narrower focus. Northampton Community Television, which is sort of I wouldn't say partner station, but similar public access station like MCTV is, but in Northampton, Mass, sponsored it, and they sent out sort of a challenge for groups to register. And as soon as I heard about it, I said, a chance to remake Raiders of the Lost Ark, just sign me up. I don't care what it costs. I don't care what we have to do.
Right.
I'm in.
Even better than the original.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Well, and I don't know, probably 15 years ago, I heard about kids who had remade the whole thing themselves when they were 12 or 13 years old, and it took a process of time. So there are other remakes sort of have been made.
So there's an illustrious tradition of remaking Raiders of the Lost Ark.
So this one, what sort of sets it apart is it's not one group doing it. It's not 100 groups doing it. It was sort of the middle ground where there were 40-some groups signed up for it, and each group got to do a full scene. So probably 3 minutes, 4 minutes tops. And I signed up because my job here, I work with kids teaching video production.
Sure.
And we offer camps during school vacations and during the summer. So I said, let's take these kids who've done some work in the video camps and let's make one of these scenes. And it was randomly assigned. So we had scene number 39, I believe.
Okay.
And it took place on a desert island just after Indiana Jones has gotten there on a submarine, but before the whole face melting sort of episode. So, I started putting it together. We got 13 kids involved in that scene, and sort of went from there. And we took a day to film a 3-minute scene. Took us probably 3 or 4 hours of actual filming. You know, some more setup time and costuming and whatnot.
So that would be the scene where they're marching the Ark towards the spot where they're actually going to open it. And
Indiana Jones
he's there with the
breaks away
grenade
from
launcher.
Them, comes up with the bazooka and threatens to blow it up. And
remember it well.
So I remember it very, very well.
I'm sure you do.
And so I
indelibly printed.
My whole goal with this was to do it as seriously and as well as possible, acknowledging the fact that all the actors are kids, and it was interesting just working with them. All of them had been in camps with me. My nephews were in it. My own kids were in it. Just to watch how their acting improved over the course of the day or in the weeks that I'd worked with them previously.
Had they all seen Raiders of the Lost Ark? Were they familiar with the source material?
Most of them had. I don't think all of them had, but certainly my kids had. My son was 8 at the time, and my daughter was 5. They're both in it. So we'd watched it with them, so they knew. And the face melting was a bit, we're like, oh, with a 5-year-old, you really want to do this? So probably what we should do is we have a trailer for it, because we're going to be showing the remake. It got its sort of national premiere back in October or November. Northampton had a film festival where they showed it. So
that was like the big red carpet event where all the dignitaries showed up.
And hopefully we'll get Harrison Ford out for our showing, but I can't promise anything. But
rumor has it. Rumor has it. He'll probably be there.
I heard someone say, I don't have to tell them it was you. You don't have to tell them it was me. But we're going to be showing it March 16th at the Marquis Theater at 7 o'clock. And we'll put some more details about it out as it gets closer. But we're doing it free, and we're inviting we've rented out the big theater, and we'll show it free that night, and hopefully we'll get lots of people coming, because it was a lot of fun to put it together. So let's watch the trailer, and then we can talk more about the pieces of it. So
absolutely.
See if the guys behind the camera got it ready.
Splendid stuff.
Yeah. So I think the trailer sort of shows all ends of the spectrum of what the film's going to be like. I think they tried to include each group just a few seconds of their clips. So there's 40-something scenes, ranging from, as you can see, live action done seriously, live action done a little bizarrely.
Yeah, I think I saw the Village People in there.
Yeah, the dancing stormtroopers is a little, off-putting. But there's stop motion.
I found it intriguing. I don't know what that says about me.
Well, we should sit close together in the movie theater and talk about it, because so I've watched it a couple times when we first got it after the Northampton screening. Watched it at home because the kids were so excited to finally see it.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah. But so I think at this point only my kids have seen the finished version locally. So like I said, there were 40 groups. 4 of them were from the Middlebury area. All of were mostly kids that had come through camp. So we had the one that was officially organized by us, and then 2 independent groups of homeschooled kids who I'd worked with a bit over the past few years volunteered to do their own scenes, and I'll sort of let people try and figure out what those might have been.
Sure.
And then the scene that I sort of shot and directed, we finished early enough that, at this point I'd collected costumes. The Marble Valley Players in Brandon had been really helpful to us. They gave us all sorts of uniforms for free. So I had this supply of uniforms. We had prop weapons. We had, storyboards written up, and we had plenty of time. So I said, "Is there any way we can help out other groups? Can we send them weapons to use? Can we loan out costumes, whatever?" And there were 2 scenes at that point that had originally been chosen, but then either the groups had fallen apart or it had failed to finish the scene. And one of them was the final scene of the movie. So I said, there's no way we're passing this up. I said, this is, to end the movie on our terms is too good. So for that time, Dick Thodel and I, the director of MCTV, said, let's make this sort of a staff show, and it's all adults from MCTV and from Ilsley, all filmed here at the library or right around it. We batted around the idea of filming in other locations, and some of the logistics were really hard because at this point we were down to the wire. But so you'll see the last scenes filmed entirely at Ilsley.
Excellent.
Again, pretty straight up, as close to the original as we could. Dick's son did some filming for us, and then all the actors are faces that you'd be familiar with around the library. So it was a lot of fun putting that together.
So how was it, like, being a part of this movie, like this movie that was clearly a big part of your childhood growing up? How did it feel?
Yeah. Well, it was.
I mean, did it wreck it for you, like examining it in such minute detail and having to go through it again and again and again, or did it enhance the?
Definitely enhance things. I mean, I'm very familiar with the sort of deconstructing movies as you're watching them, and it's hard for me to watch something and totally just get into the movie and not think about how's this made, because obviously that's what I do and I like doing. But it was a chance to become the character in the adult scene that we shot, and then with the kids, I could direct it, and we broke that apart as accurately as possible. We tried to film it, to the second of what the original shots were like.
Right.
And you realize, they just sort of joke about acting with animals or kids, the challenges that are there. And, we realized at the end there were pieces that, either we didn't have because we didn't get the acting done. There were some pieces where we had to fill in some voiceovers, closing the door of the car and getting my nephew in to read the line that he'd missed on location, things like that. But to be part of it, and the film that I did or the scene that I did with the kids is we're out in a gravel pit, sand piles, with, Nazi banners and machine guns, and you really feel you're not just making a movie, you're being part of this whole thing.
Well, sort of the ultimate role-playing experience, I would think.
Yeah. Well, and because I was going to offer you the position of weapons master for that, because I knew as soon as these guns come out, the kids are just going to go nuts. And we were filming on private property, and we sort of hashed out the logistics of doing that, and they're realistic looking. They're essentially BB guns that are not. There's nothing to fire out of them. Yeah. But the kids just wanted to be the guards with the guns. That was the fun part. Yeah. But it also brought up some interesting kinds of things. Because we wanted to do it very realistic. How are we going to handle Nazi swastikas on banners, and various groups handled that differently. Some did them because that's who the bad guys were in the movie. Others had similar looking but different graphics. Within our own group, one of the kids' grandfathers was a World War II veteran, and so we're like, they're not going to be too keen on grandson carrying a a Nazi banner, so somebody else did that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun, a lot of work, but
It looked like a tremendous amount. I mean, I haven't seen the movie, but just from the
Yeah.
clip, from the little pieces. I mean, some
Yeah.
people obviously really I think I saw R2D2.
yeah, well,
making a little
there's
guest
some great
appearance.
little references like that, which is true in a lot of other the Star Wars movies,
Right.
or Pixar movies now that play make references to earlier ones. The one where R2D2 shows up, the character, the Lego character who's playing Indiana Jones, is actually Han Solo's Lego character from the Star Wars episode. And the kids who did that used Stormtrooper Legos as the Nazis. It just fits really well.
Sure.
So there's the little funny sort of inside.
Yeah, I'm sure that's where the
jokes.
inspiration for the Stormtroopers came from,
yeah.
pretty much. Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's sort of the references coming full circle.
Very meta, lots of layers. Yeah.
Well, and then there's sock puppets. Is one of the scenes done entirely with sock puppets. One of them is done entirely by one actor, where he plays, I'd say, at least 5 or 6 different characters, male and female. You got a piece of that because I think you saw him as a man and a woman in the trailer. There's several Lego stop motion animation scenes, some action figures, some done by kids, some done by adults. Right. So all mostly Massachusetts-based teams, and then 4 from the Middlebury area, like I said.
So I'm definitely in. I mean, I am intrigued. I'm really looking forward to it. I think I'm going to come in the appropriate attire as well. You know, I'm definitely going to bring my hat, bring my whip, and
good. You get a front row seat with a whip.
They'll let me into the theater with this, you think?
Probably.
Yeah.
Well, it is free, so there's no sort of barrier to entry, and we'll hopefully we'll be getting word out in the independent and obviously on TV and word of mouth.
Yeah. So what's the next project on the horizon?
Well, we just wrapped another project, so I haven't really thought about what I would like to do something else in the summer, and sort of, believe it or not, end of February, Tricia and I are looking at summer plans for the library already. But last week of vacation, we had a Shakespeare stop motion camp where it was all kids who'd done prior camps with us. And because the first folio is at the college this month, we said, let's make movies tying into Shakespeare. And so we have little pieces of Hamlet, little pieces of Romeo and Juliet. Romeo and Juliet set in the Star Wars universe is one of them.
Excellent.
So they're all short because doing animation is a lot of painstaking work and
very time consuming.
We had 3 days of camp, half days where a group would put together anywhere from 10 to 40 seconds of animation.
Sure.
And that was a lot of work.
So did Shakespeare translate really well into stop motion? Was that an easy transition?
They typically did more of the action scenes.
The sword
although
fighting,
the to be or not to be speech, the first folio is open to that at the college, so you can go see it. And then on Ilsley's website, you can see Lego Hamlet doing the beginning of it's only the beginning of the speech.
You feel like Shakespeare would approve?
Yes. Yeah. I taught Shakespeare for a long time, and I think, sort of if he were, today, what would he be doing?
Right.
You sort of think that the film world is where, certainly they're making more money than a playwright is. So I sort of said, of course he'd be a filmmaker, but a little hubris on my part. But I have used a lot of Shakespeare films teaching it, and to compare, here's how one actor did it, here's how a different actor did it. Instead, you don't watch the whole movie, you watch the same scene 3 different ways. And this is just taking that to the next level where the kids are actually making those decisions and making their own versions of those scenes.
Seems like a fabulous educational experience on so many levels. Like learning all the technical stuff that goes into it, actually putting the film together, using the cameras, manipulating the effects in various ways, but then really penetrating the material as well, learning about the Shakespeare and exploring it in creative way. Because a lot of movies now, like Shakespeare movies even, when they grapple with the material, it's not just a straight kind of classic Elizabethan retelling. They'll tweak it in various ways.
Yeah, and we really, in the camp, we really kind of just scratched that surface.
Right.
Lindsay Pontius, who is the education director at Town Hall Theater, works with kids in Shakespeare all the time and has the Shakespeare It's Elementary program, which I've helped out with, where that's where they get much more involved in, you need to know what the character's saying because you're going to perform it on stage. So what does that mean to you as an actor? You're a 10-year-old kid playing this, how do you do that?
Right.
In the stop motion camp, we didn't have nearly the time to do that, but the kids get to interpret what is this scene going to look like? Where does the character come in from? And some of the kids who've been doing it longer, they're just using Legos, but there's emotional component to it and timing and music and other things. They're making some real conscious decisions on what they want that short scene to be like.
Right. I would imagine that working with kids on this kind of stuff, you see a lot of development. Like I would imagine that there's a tremendous kind of evolution from when they first start grappling with cameras and media and putting short little videos together, to after they've been through a few camps and worked with you for a little while. I would think that their whole perspective, their whole vision and the way that they think about it would be impacted pretty dramatically.
Yeah, and I'm hoping to see, I've definitely seen that in the shorter term. I've been at MCTV for close to 4 years now, and some of the kids are recurring, and typically our sort of prime audience is 4th, 5th, and 6th grades, and as they get into middle school, as they get into high school, there's more for them to do, and less of a need to have somebody holding their hand doing it. So. Some of the kids that Nikki, my predecessor, worked with as 8, 9, 10-year-olds have come back as 15, 16-year-old volunteers, and then some of those kids are now in college, in film or video or audio sort of programs, and you definitely the kids that return from one camp to the next or after school programs. You can see it's not just the sort of technical skills they're getting better at, but storytelling, working with other kids, which is always a big piece of it. We sort of operate on a model of 4s. We've got 4 computers, we've got 4 cameras, we have 4 iPads in all of our kid programs, so we can have 4 groups. So typically they're 2, 3, 4. 4 is hard to do when you get to the computer, but they need to learn to cooperate and decide who's going to be the director for this, who's got the idea, who's interested in being on the camera for this piece of it. And
such critical skills now. Like it's going to be essential for them to know these things, and knowing these things will give them such an advantage moving forward in so many different ways. I think just academically and career-wise for sure, in a straightforward kind of sense, in applying these skills to what they're doing in classrooms and out in the workforce. But the ability to express themselves creatively, to communicate with people through media is, that's a big part of how we communicate with people now.
Well, when you look at how much video is uploaded to YouTube in a day, and that's sort of the where the library is sort of evolving as well, as it's not just a place to consume media and come check out books, it's a place to come and create media. Right. And so the media making skills are important, but sort of embedded below the surface, and we don't necessarily consciously think about it out loud with kids a lot, is sort of the media literacy of, as a consumer, what are you looking at? And we do talk about it overtly, but it's not the reason they're there. They're there to make a movie. Sure. But we talk, they learn through that when they're watching a movie or watching a commercial, they could be manipulated. Somebody's making those decisions that they're making in their own. That makes them a little more intelligent consumers of media as well as producers, which is good.
That would make sense. If they're aware of the craft somewhat, then they can see the mechanisms at play and break it apart. And
little deconstruction as a 10-year-old.
Absolutely. But, you know, very young children are obtaining these devices now. You know, they're gaining access to this world at an earlier and earlier point developmentally. Like, even just a few years ago when I started as a school resource officer, say about 4 years ago, it seemed like it was middle schoolers that were gaining devices. Now it's 4th, 5th grade. You know, kids are getting their phones, their iPads, and they're interacting with video and putting stuff out there as well, putting images out there and communicating with this stuff.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think if there's other things coming up that like we touched on. Sort of summer camps. We'll be offering 3. Well, I guess even before that, April vacation, sort of around the corner.
Yep.
We offer an intro to filmmaking camp then, and like I said before, those are free, offered through the library. Space is limited, and they're always popular. So if people are watching and want to, stay tuned to the website.
Yep.
And then we offer that camp again in June, just after school gets out. July, we'll offer another animation camp, and in August, sort of an advanced filmmaking camp for kids who've taken earlier ones. So that's sort of on the horizon, but kind of again, let's spread the word that March 16th.
Yep.
Come see Crowdsource Cinema, Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's going to be a great thing.
Marquis
is doing a great job for us too. We got.
You're gonna have to serve dates at the event.
Bad dates.
Bad dates. Yeah. I think there was even a scene where we saw the monkey. I don't know whether it was a Lego one or what that was exactly. I don't remember, but
no,
I remember seeing a monkey
And we may be able to offer the original movie at Ilsley prior to that. So if people haven't seen it, they get a chance to watch the original before coming out to see the remake.
Yeah, so it'd be like a double bill.
Right.
Yeah. For the serious connoisseur, not just
There'll be a run on the other movies right afterwards as people want to see what happens next.
Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, it's good to finally be on the show.
That's right. Yeah, you're so often behind the scenes, manipulating the technical stuff.
Right.
Yeah. and you have a great face for television as well.
Thank you. Yeah, you too.
Thanks. So, until next time, drive safe, and may all your mischief be of the lawful persuasion. I'm not sure if I should do like a whip crack at the end.